Hello, and on this episode, Lex gets a visit from a woman he once loved, Chloe gets a new admirer, Clark gets jelly, and Quan gets killed. This episode is Crush, and you're listening to the Smallville Chronicles. Hello, I'm Lou Gonzalez, and joined as always, my co-host Alan Muir.
Hello, hello.
So this was an interesting episode. We had a guest star. He was a decent name at the time. When I was watching on Hulu, he's actually like top billed, like in the episode synopsis, and that's Adam Brody.
From the OC, that terrible movie with Megan Fox.
Oh, I don't even know what terrible movie Megan Fox is. I think I've only seen her in the 2 Transformers movies.
Jennifer's Body.
Oh, okay. And then he was also cast in the George Miller Never Happened Justice League movie that was killed because of the writer's strike. Because he was set to star as the Flash, and he has talked about it on several podcasts about how large his role in that movie was going to be. And I think he actually would have done a good job. Watching this episode made me think has a lot of similar traits to Grant Gustin.
Yeah, he does.
He's got kind of a similar build. He's curly hair, but I guess that's only, but there's a lot of similar things between the two of them that makes me think that he could have played a great Barry Allen. But this is an interesting episode. It's also a kind of dark episode because there's,
there's a lot of blood.
A lot of blood. At least, I would say there's definitely one death. I don't know if the first person dies or is just brutally injured. But I guess that's a good segue to get into how this episode starts. So we start at the Metropolis Children's Hospital, where we see Adam Brody playing the Freak of the Week, Justin Gaines, where he is...
Who looks like he's about 25 years old.
Well, yeah, that's kind of not a surprise in this show, though. Everybody's super old.
Yeah.
The only people that look kind of young is, depending on how they dress her, Chloe looks kind of young, and certain shots, Welling looks pretty young.
Yeah.
And so he gets checked by his doctor, who the name jumped out at me really hard because it's Dr. Nathan Wells. But anytime I hear Dr. Wells, it just makes me think of Flash. But he comes in, basically says that he's checking in before he goes to a charity event and asks him how his hands are. And he shows him a picture where he can't really draw. And he says after the accident, there were so many things that you're kind of lucky to be alive, let alone, couldn't do anything with your hands. And says something about, gives a really dumb story about, I think he wanted to play music or something.
Yeah, and they said he had the hands of a surgeon, so he decided to become a surgeon. Yeah,
it's really dumb. And then, Justin brings up the malpractice lawsuits that he's had in his past. And Wells kind of just scoffs at him and then leaves. And he joins, I guess it's his wife.
Yeah, has to be.
Yeah, and so they get into an elevator and kind of jokes that, he doesn't have any evidence, that there was anything going on. And they get into an elevator because they're going to an event, and then it kind of, I don't remember, does it, drop and then it stops, or does it just stop?
It's sort of dropping very slowly.
Yeah, it's it's more than a malfunction. At least that's what it seemed like to me. It didn't just, kind of jerk down, it looked like it went down at least, a couple of floors.
Yeah.
But Wells is able to open up the doors. He gets his wife out, and as she's trying to help him out, then the elevator fully drops, and it cuts his hands off. I think, I'm trying to remember, it was such a quick little shot, if we actually see her left with the hands, or maybe that's just, in my head filling the gap.
That's how it looked.
Yeah, which is kind of hardcore for this show. But while this is going on, we see Justin in the room. He pulls away the first drawing that he had showed the doctor, and there's a beautiful drawing of the doctor underneath. And then he picks up a marker and I think it's a red marker, and kind of scribbles out the hands. So definitely implying that he is having something to do with this. And does he float the marker over to himself?
No, that's later on.
Okay. Alright, so from here, we cut to career fair day at Smallville High. And we are introduced to a character that we've never seen before, which means that they're going to be important to the plot, which is Danny Kwan, Principal Kwan's son, who is trying to recruit Clark into the Air Force. And, of course, whenever there's anything about flying, they make a joke about flying here.
Yeah.
Pete says that he gets a job at Mayor Siegel's re-election campaign, which is obviously Easter egg.
Nod to Jerry Siegel.
Yes. Chloe reveals that she is nervous about trying to get a spot at the Daily Planet because they only give away 4 spots to 500 applicants. And it's not this episode, I believe it's the next that we get a first hint at a character that we will see in a couple seasons from now. And then Pete reminds her that she should try to go for the Inquisitor, since Lex, I think, a couple episodes ago, told her that he could get her in. She and Clark were supposed to be going to the Journals and Student Convention, but Clark forgot to get tickets. Chloe's upset, and she kind of huffs off and says that's because he's been spending too much time with Lana and Lex and neglecting his real friends. And then she storms away in tears, and Pete kind of is like, she's not wrong, and also that Clark's clueless because she doesn't realize that Chloe really likes him. And she wanted Clark to ask her to the spring formal, and she was looking forward to spending the day with him.
The way Clark says, but that would mean a date. That is very much like how he acts in Kingdom Come when Wonder Woman is telling him about the new superheroes and the old guard has to do something about it, and he's like, war means people are going to die.
Yeah, it's a very naive kind of way he says it, childlike way.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because you get to see here, again, this is the whole love pentagram thing going on because, of course, we already realized that Pete likes Chloe as well, even though it seems like he's moved on from her at this point. So it's more of just the love triangle or the love square, I guess, between Whitney, Chloe, Lana, and Clark, which we will soon, again, because we're coming to the end of the season, Whitney kind of gets moved out of that as well. So from here, Clark goes to the Torch, and this is where Justin... I'm sorry, I skipped ahead. Justin returns to Smallville. Chloe's happy to see him. They've been sharing emails back and forth over the 6 months as he's been recuperating. She's not able... He reveals that he can't draw anymore, the comic for the Smallville Torch, but he offers to buy Chloe a cup of coffee, and she sees Clark over his shoulder and agrees to go with him kind of as a way to... Again, she's still mad at him. I don't think she's trying to make him jealous, although it does it does that in this episode. Clark does catch up with them later on, and Justin remembers he doesn't remember that much about the incident, which is where we learn what happened, and that he was hit by a car on his way home from school, and all he remembers is 3 letters from the license plate, DDI. And Chloe decides to look into it, and then Lex got Clark tickets to the conference, but Chloe's still mad at him, and she and Justin are going to investigate the accident.
She also mentions that Justin just so happens to have 2 tickets, so she ends up going. She says she's going to go as his guest.
Yep, so she doesn't need Clark. And again, this is kind of an interesting episode where there's kind of a tables turned on Clark when it comes to Chloe, where he's kind of realizing that he might have some feelings for her. And like in many episodes in this first season, Chloe's kind of has blinders on when it comes to any guy liking her. Because I think this is like the 3rd time this season something like this has happened to her.
Yeah.
And Clark also finds the newspaper clipping of Dr. Wells' incident when Justin drops his stuff. And it was in Justin's things. I think he drops like his papers and folders and stuff. And so the next scene we go to is back at the farm. Lana visits Clark to ask about Chloe. He admits similarly, and he even brings it up, that just like how he has feelings for Lana and he told Chloe about it, he is now having feelings for Chloe and he tells Lana about it. He admits that they could become more than friends, and he felt jealous when he saw her with Justin, but he's surprised he never saw before. Lana says, sometimes the right person is in front of you and you never know it. Obviously talking about the 2 of them.
Yeah.
And I believe at some point she gives basically the exact same advice Chloe gave to him about Lana. And that's where he like kind of mentions that same thing happened. As opposed to like the will they won't they with Lana, this is kind of a more, I guess this relationship kind of happens for like a half a second with Chloe as we go through the season. Because I think the season finale is the spring fling or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which we are building up to because I think we only have like a handful of episodes left this first season. We cut next to Justin's room. He's trying to do a portrait of Chloe with his hands. It doesn't, he can't draw. He tears it up and throws it away. Then we see him psychically pick up pencils and chalk, and he draws a beautiful portrait of her. And we are kind of shown here that he has abilities, and that he was the one that obviously, it's not even like subtle, like they're basically throwing in your face that he's the one that caused the accident. And now we are seeing that he is telekinetic. Alright, our next spot is where we get our first kind of subplot in this episode, and it's a very Lex-centric thing. I don't really think there's much other subplot. Basically, he's visiting the grave of his mother, and he meets Pamela Jenkins for the first time in a while, and basically we learn that this is the 9th anniversary of his mother's death, and that Pamela was his nanny, I guess would be the right word.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was like a caregiver, and we learned that basically right after his mother died, she bounced and was out of the picture. And he kind of tells her to, like, take a walk. So we see the next day at school, Clark tries to convince Pete that Justin isn't good because of the clippings, and Justin overhears and basically confronts Clark right away, which is interesting because it's the first person who's kind of like a adversary to Clark in any of these episodes to, like, hear him and actually just go right up to his face and talk to him about it and call him out on it. We have not seen that yet. And then I guess this is the scene where Clark then we go next to the Talon. Clark's delivering the pies. He sees Whitney, finds out that his father is doing better, and he has tickets to go see like a show in Metropolis, and that he's being nice to Lana again. When he leaves, Lana admits that, since Whitney's dad's getting better, it's kind of changed the way the relationship was between her and Whitney, because she'd basically been like, I guess, like, kind of just at Whitney's side and helping him through it, and not really had any other relationship besides that. And she's thinking about kind of ending their relationship now that his dad is better. And this is where Clark, talks to her about if he makes a move, he's afraid that he will lose a friend, and that he had an opportunity in the past, and he chose not to take it, and he let the moment slip away, obviously talking about him and Lana. I guess that's the other subplot thing, is still the, like, Whitney's dad thing, but that gets wrapped up at the end of this episode. Or, I guess kind of more in the next episode it gets wrapped up.
Not really. It literally ends the episode.
Yeah, I think, well, the next one involves, like, some it's still dad drama with Whitney, but, like, a different kind.
You mean what he chooses to do?
Yeah, because that still involves, like, his relationship with his father. So I would say, like, that, to me, is the ending of it, because it's still, like, dealing with the ramifications. I guess, why are we dancing around it? Like, at the end of this episode, his dad dies. That's kind of how they end the episode. Yeah. So the next episode involves, this episode is the funeral, right? The end?
Yeah.
Yeah, the next episode, we kind of see Whitney going through his dad's stuff, and he finds the military stuff, like the stars and stuff like that. So I guess you could say that kind of plot ends here, but I think it goes like 1 or 2 more episodes, only because that's the out for Whitney in the show.
Yeah, and keep in mind there's only 2 episodes left in the season.
Yep. So yeah, I would say, yeah, that like it's mostly closed off here, but it kind of gets trickled out in those final 2 episodes. I did not realize how much went on in this episode, just looking over like the notes right now, but there's a lot that goes on. So we go back to the school. Justin finds Chloe at the torch. She's excited to tell him that her contact at the DMV when she gave him the partial license plate, he's going to send over some stuff. Justin gives her the portrait. Then he tells her that when the car hit him, he was lying in the road and he thought of her. He admits that he had a crush on her and regretted not doing anything about it. Chloe, they then kiss, and all the office supplies, like in the whole room, start to float. Chloe sees all this, and everything falls, and he admits that he has been telekinetic ever since the accident, but he doesn't want it to come between the 2 of them and end up on the wall weird. Chloe's not freaked out, because basically she says she's seen, like, weirder stuff. And then,
what weirder stuff has she seen?
The ice guy.
Man, I did not want to remember that.
Yeah. That's what I mean, like, every single guy that she's meeting that's, like, into her that's not Clark, it becomes, like, is a murderer. Like, early on. Like, she is the worst love interest in the show. Besides maybe Pete, but at least Pete's was, 1, it was Amy Adams, and 2, she decided not to kill Pete, or try to kill him. All the ones that are involved with Chloe end up trying to kill her. But Clark bursts in without knocking.
And soon Lex will have that problem in the season 2 premiere.
Yeah. But Clark busts in the room without knocking. Chloe leaves to talk to Clark while they're outside. The fax comes from the DMV, and Justin grabs it and leaves. Clark tries to warn Chloe about Justin. Chloe's still mad, and she just said Justin told her Clark was talking about him behind his back and doesn't want to hear anything Clark is saying. So now we cut back. Were you going to say something?
The thing about that, though, yeah, they do that all the time. They're talking about people behind their back all the time.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was
and
saying.
And just now they do something about it?
This is the first time where someone actually calls them on it, where, like, in the episode, Justin's like, hey, I'm literally 5 feet away from you. I can hear you. Stop being a dick. I have no hands. Like,
yeah, he's like, he also says, he literally says the words, you had your shot with her, now let me get my shot.
And if she didn't realize that he was crazy and murderous, like, he kind of is making a fair point.
Yeah.
Alright, so our next thing, we're back to the Lex story. So Pamela is at the mansion and tells Lex that she did not abandon him after his mother's death, that Lionel actually made her go away, and that she's come seeking forgiveness, even though Lex is still mad. And basically tells Lex that Lionel told her if she did not leave, he would disinherit Lex. And then Lex still kind of, shuns her, and then she leaves sad. Alright, next we come to the evening, I guess, of this day, and Principal Quan arrives home. He finds the garbage cans are in his driveway, so he gets out to move them. This is where Justin confronts him, and basically, as we saw from the paper that came from the DMV, it was Quan's car that hit him. He confronts Quan about it. He says he doesn't know anything about it. He uses his telekinesis to pick up the lawn lights and, like, have them impale Quan's jacket.
And, yeah, basically just pins him to the garage door.
Yeah, and he psychically starts the car, even though the keys aren't in it, and puts it in gear, and...
No, the keys were in the car.
No, because later on we learned that the keys were in Quan's coat. Unless they're implying that the keys are taken out of the car and then put back into his jacket pocket. Because Quan's son says that he doesn't understand what happened because the keys were still in his jacket. And the official report is that the car slipped a gear, but they have no idea how it was on.
Huh.
Yeah. So I don't know how he psychically, telekinetically started the car, but yeah, they actually specifically say that the keys were in Quan's jacket, and that's why it was not just everyone's both Chloe, Clark, and Quan's son are confused or know that something happened. So yeah, but Quan gets drilled through the garage with his own car and is killed in a very violent manner. And he is the second school official to be killed, or school employee to be murdered in the show. Or not murdered. First to be murdered, second to die on the show. Since the pilot episode had, what's his name? The coach. Was that the pilot? Or was that the second episode? The hothead.
That was in the first 5 episodes. One of them.
Yeah, I don't remember which one, but that was so Quan is the second person that works at the school to die. Because I
Quan and Coach Walt.
Yeah, because I think a lot of teachers and people end up dying in the show. Staff, faculty. So we leave here. Lex visits Clark in the loft. He's amused at Clark because he is reading Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, which is something very much of the times. Clark explains the dilemma with Lana and Chloe. He basically goes there's these two friends, and Lex stops him and is like, why don't we just call them Lana and Chloe? Basically, calling